And welcome to Thursday's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live here on Giants.com. I know we're just a tad late, but that's because General Manager Joe Schoen had his pre-draft press conference. We had to listen in on that. I'm Paul Dottino. He is Jonathan Casillas. And we will go over our reaction to what Joe Schoen said, kind of update you on the state of the Giants. And, of course, we'll take your phone calls at 201-939-4513. 201-939-4513. We'll talk Giants football for the next hour. Don't fret. We're not going to shortchange you. I know we got on a little late, Jonathan, but we're going to give you a full hour. And, of course, you can always catch an archive of this show on Giants.com and all of your favorite podcast platforms everywhere. All right, so, Jonathan, let's start things off. Let's get right to the nuts and bolts of this. Everybody wants to know about the status of Saquon Barkley and of Dexter Lawrence. To repeat what Brian Daboll, the head coach, said the other day, that is, Saquon Barkley did not sign his tag yet, so he's not allowed in the building. That's first. Second, Dexter Lawrence is under voluntary instructions to come to the offseason program. He is not here, but Joe Schoen has said that he has spoken with Lawrence's people within the last week in terms of discussing a potential extension. He has not, however, had any conversations with Saquon Barkley since the owners' meetings, and at this point has no plans to do so, doesn't know what Barkley's plan is in terms of staying, coming, signing, whatever he plans to do. So that is the status report in terms of the roster. We have been telling people on this program, Jonathan, and if you have a different opinion, please chime in. There's nothing to see here. There's no fire, nothing to see here. It's still mid-April. When push comes to shove, week one opening day 2023, you will see Barkley in the Giants lineup. You will see Lawrence in the Giants lineup. Just as we told you many, many moons ago, you would see Barkley and you would see Daniel Jones back with the Giants. Feel free to disagree if you like.
No, I fully agree with you, and it's just funny when listening to Joe Schoen and watching his kind of, mannerisms in the press conference. He's so over the Saquon questions. He's so over it. When you're asking about Saquon, he's like, guys, I've been telling you guys for months, it is what it is. So the Saquon is not really a surprise. I think I fully understand, his side of it, and then also the Giants side of it as well. And, he's not on contract right now, so he's not allowed in the building, and it is what it is. Definitely Saquon's working. He's a guy, he's a workhorse type of guy. He's a guy that's going to show up in shape whenever he does show up, and hopefully he's a happy Saquon whenever he shows up, because they're trying to figure this, this contract situation out. I know they said the offer has been rescinded, but you better believe that they're going to figure something out before the season starts because it works best for both sides, if they get this deal done. And Dexter Lawrence, that may be a surprise to people that truly don't understand the game. But the only reason, there's like three reasons why somebody's not here for voluntary workouts, because they're like mandatory voluntary, right?
We know.
Right. There's three reasons why. Number one is some type of family issue, some type of deal like that where, they're removed. Number two, contractual stuff, where it's like, hey, I'm that guy and you need to pay me. So I'm not going to show up until you pay me. That's kind of where we're at right now. And the third one is being the a-hole. He's not that.
No.
He's not that. He's not. He's a team-first guy, but when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, when you play X amount of years and the average for the NFL player is less than 3 years, you have to have self-preservation. You have to take care of yourself. And as of right now, he wants to cook when the stove is hot. And for Dexter Lawrence, the stove is very hot right now. And for him, I think it's advantageous for him to try to get as much money as possible after the year he had. And he was healthy the whole year. He was dominant the whole year. And the thing is, the way this football thing is, you can't predict that year in and year out. So he's basically trying to maximize on his potential right now, and I don't fault him for that. And hopefully the Giants can figure something out with Dexter Lawrence, because everybody knows the Giants need Dexter Lawrence on his team.
Now, I will give you a hypothetical scenario. Saquon Barkley signs a new multi-year deal right at the deadline before, he's got to come in and does it and gets 3 or 4 years, whatever it is. And that means they can rescind the franchise tag. They then would have the franchise tag to use on Dexter Lawrence for next year should they so choose.
I love talking to you, Paul, because you make me think. I never even thought of that. Dang, that'd be dope. That'd be dope. If they can do that, that means.
They absolutely have the ability to do that. Now, this is why we had the conversations. The Jones deal was going to get done, because for the Jones deal to get done in time for the deadline for the franchise tag, they could then use the tag on Barkley.
Yep.
That was the whole strategy.
Yep.
They did it. It worked. They could now apply the same strategy to Dexter Lawrence.
Yep. And keep your best defensive player for a year at least, right? On a number that's friendly enough than the number that they would have to give him if they would restructure him right now. Never thought of that, Paul. That's why I love talking to you. When I saw you today, I was like, we were doing BBK the other day. You was like, yes. It's like, yeah, nothing against Lance. I love Lance. I love John. But, you're my guy, Paul.
Well, I appreciate that.
And you definitely give a different perspective. And I know the callers and the viewers of BBKL and Giants fans all around definitely appreciate your knowledge and your perspective on things, because you give us a different side, because you've been around so long, and me, I'm more
I've seen a
player oriented. You're like big picture, you're like macro. I'm more micro, you know what I mean? So it's a good combination.
Now, I'm not making that as a prediction, but it's certainly a hypothetical scenario that is very plausible.
Yes,
That's the point.
Very much so.
That's the point.
Yep. And the way Joe Schoen is, I feel like, making moves, he's using all his tools to his usage. Like, he's using everything that he has available.
Isn't that the GM's job?
Yeah, but you don't see that all the time. Some teams don't even franchise players. You know what I mean? Like, he's using, and now you're saying he's going to use it 3 times almost this year, So I think Joe Schoen is doing a tremendous job. I love the way he talks. I love his confidence in how he speaks. He sounds like he's just been doing it for so long, and he's been all in. Sometimes guys, they're not all the way in on their job. They're not all the way in what they do. And I think that you can see that. But Joe Schoen, he's talking about how he used to do 50 college visits and, like stuff like that. That's an absurd amount of college visits, and he's been around. And I feel like now you're seeing the reason why the Giants hired him. You're seeing it show as free agency, the franchise, and now the draft is approaching. You're seeing the magic man in Joe Schoen create magic and put together this roster and figure out how to get numbers, switched around. And, look, I'm so happy with his performance since basically the Giants stopped playing football.
Brandon Beane of the Bills taught him well.
Yes.
We see how well the Bills have managed their business. And I don't think there's any doubt that Joe Schoen has brought a lot of those techniques and philosophies with him from upstate New York.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And then you get a guy so you have an organization like the Bills who has had a lot of success, one of the storied franchises of the NFL for a very long time. And then you look at even the Patriots, right? And you look at the success they have. Every now and again, there's like a catalyst that kind of sparks that, or at least ignites it and keeps it going. I think Joe Schoen was that guy. And he got brought over to New York, and he's starting this whole new deal here in New York. Combine him with Dayball and ownership, and you got the right quarterback and hopefully the right running back and some good defense. I think that shows to where it could possibly be a good decade of Giants football coming up. And I think the Giants need it. New York, tri-state area needs it. Giants Nation needs it, because it's been a long time since the Giants been good for a prolonged period of time. And I'm talking about one good year here, one playoff appearance here, then another 6-7 year drought. I'm talking about a consistent run of, the half decade to a decade where the Giants are consistently making the playoffs. Joe Schoen, I think, is that guy to do that.
Okay, one other point I want to make about the Barkley and Lawrence situation, and it's important to get your take on this because, Jonathan, you've played in this league for a lot of years. You know what it's like. There are times when teams are worried about guys who stay away because they know of their character, they know of their reputation, they know that they don't always push the pedal to the metal. With Barkley and Lawrence, they know the character of both of these players. They know that these guys are pros in terms of their craft and their work ethic. I don't think the Giants are at all the least bit worried about Lawrence or Barkley in terms of their offseason conditioning and their preparation, that even though they may come in later than you would like, because you certainly would love to have everybody here 100% if you could, At the same time, I don't think they're the least bit concerned that those guys will be 100% ready when they get here.
No, those guys are pros. You know, they're consummate pros. They're professional athletes. You know, and honestly, the workouts here at the NFL during the voluntary training periods, they're not really that tough. You know, because the liability reason, like somebody could possibly get hurt. You know, if you're pushing it to the limit.
David Tyree hurt his knee.
Did he really?
Tore his
during this time of the year?
meniscus during off-season weight training.
But like I've been around.
Okay, I mean that's just an example.
I've been around, and some people get hurt during this period.
It does happen,
and it puts a lot of pressure on the strength and conditioning staff, and this stuff gets tweaked for the season. You don't really want that. You know, you want to have a healthy, successful OTA, training period, and go into the off season healthy, and then training camp healthy. But I don't see too much concern of them guys not being here right now. They're not young guys. You know, they're younger veterans. They're not young guys. Like, they're not first, second year guys. They're, older guys in the league. They're both veterans. They're both leaders. You know, I know Saquon. I saw him not too long ago with the group of receivers and with the Giants, and Daniel Jones looking great as always. Quad's looking amazing as always. And Dexter Lawrence, you better believe that guy's working out. You know, so don't take anything away from those guys and not being here.
We saw him and Leonard Williams in a video pulling weights in a driveway last week.
Getting some work done. You know, so definitely.
There's no worry.
And like I said, the OTA sessions, it's not really to work the guys out. It's more to get the guys together. That's the only aspect I feel like they're missing out on, is the camaraderie and the getting together and possibly getting some unity with the locker room, because there's not too many X's and O's. I mean, there's X's and O's, but like they don't have a learning curve. They know what they're doing. They already know what they're doing. They know the terminology. They know the offense and defense that the Giants are running. So it's not like, I mean, you could always get like a refresher course. Always, it's always good to see it over and over again. But what I'm saying is they're not missing out on much not being here. That's what I'm trying to say.
And they know most of the locker room anyway.
Right. Just some new guys there, some chemistry with some new guys. You know, some nachos coming in, and some guys coming in, but like. Not really. Everybody know who Dexter Lawrence is when he comes in the locker room.
All right, let me hit some key points of Joe Schoen's presser in case you did not watch it live as we broadcast it on Giants.com before we started the show. And I will leave it to you if you want to make a quick reaction to any of these, or just let me pass to the next point. We'll let it go. As far as the setter spot, Joe Schoen said there's some depth in the draft, and he said that his staff thinks there are in-house candidates, plus they brought in Heisauser, the free agent from the Steelers, to have good competition at the spot. I still think the Giants may potentially add somebody in the draft, but if they don't, they're already telling you they think they've got some guys who can battle for it.
Yeah, and he was so certain about that. He was so certain. He said, we got 13 guys in-house, offensive linemen in-house, 14 guys in-house. And he's like, we got guys in-house. And he said that before, too, months ago.
He added Lemieux, by the way, to that conversation today. He had not mentioned him prior.
I did hear that, too.
He mentioned Shane Lemieux today.
You know, so he has a group of guys with an idea of who he wants to play that center position, because he said right after the Eagles game when the Giants lost in the playoffs,
he said a
couple of days later they were addressing if Gates left and if Feliciano left, what are we going to do? So they've been on this stuff for months already. Months, not a couple weeks, for months. He's been thinking about this for months. So like I said about Joe Schoen, I can't give him enough praise. The guy's on top of his game, bro.
201-939-4513 is our phone number. Quickly, some other points from Joe Schoen. He said if the value is right, he would make a deal involving a 2024 draft choice. Did not want to do that last year. Wanted to use all his picks because he knew he had a rebuilding thing to go through. But this year, he said he would not be afraid to trade a future draft choice if necessary. Is willing to move up or down in the draft, which shouldn't surprise you.
Yep.
I mean, he's going to leave all of his options open. Did say you have to consider specific matchups within the division when you're looking at prospects. Said there are several good running backs in the draft and would never say he would not take a specific position in the first round.
Let's go back to the one before.
Go ahead.
He talked about basically drafting to match up in the division, right? For this division, the NFC East, especially what happened in 2022.
You better be strong along the line.
You have to. Because if the Giants do what they did last year, they're not going to make the playoffs. They went 1-4-1 in the division.
Right.
And I'm telling you, Paul, you know this too, there's no way the Giants make the playoffs again with going 1-4-1 in the division. No way.
It was a lightning in a bottle.
There was no way they can do that. So the Giants have to improve. And just like when Shaq was in the NBA years ago, they drafted to defend Shaq. They drafted because they have a dominant figure. And you look at the Eagles that along that defensive line. You got to draft guys to help you protect against that defensive line. You got to draft guys to help you stop that 1-2 rushing attack that they have over in Philadelphia. And then also the Cowboys, all the receivers that they have on the outside. You got to be able to draft good corners and good defensive backs to match up against these talented rosters in the NFC East. So I like that he said that, and I like that idea that you don't have to look outside of the division if you want to have success. You can match up and win in the division. Of course, if you win a division, automatic, straight to the playoffs. But if you can be competitive in the NFC East, which was the best division in football last year, you have a shot of being a really good team.
Shane also said he will have 3 quarterbacks in camp, and he's very pleased with Tyrod Taylor as the backup. Obviously, Davis Webb has decided to go into coaching with the Denver Broncos.
Good for him.
So they do need a third quarterback per se. Other items of interest, he said today. Has a better comfort level with how the staff will utilize players. Specifically talked about Kafka and Martindale, their schemes and what they look for in players and how they will use them. He said, we've had to tweak our scouting to kind of fit what they want so we can go get what they want. He said there's a better comfort level now that they've had those guys in the building for a year. And that makes a lot of sense.
Oh, yeah. He's understanding who his personnel is. You got a chef and you got some sous chefs. He's starting to understand his sous chefs. He's starting to understand the guys that are working with him and what they need to be successful and what their identity is and what they want to show and what they want to put out come September and what that product looks like. Joe Schoen has a good grasp on that because when you first show up, just like me, when I'm working with you guys, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, And
Poor guy.
And then I got you, I got Lance, I got Schmelke. And then as time progresses, I learned how to talk with you guys. And each of you guys are different. Just like me, Howard Cross, and the guys that you speak to, the former NFL players, we're all different as well, too. So it takes a little bit of time. And luckily that there was some success during that growing period, right? There was some success. I'm not talking about BBKL. I'm talking about the Giants 22 season. There was success. So not that you could relax, but it's not as much pressure. We're doing good. We got 2 cameras now. Pearson's got the lights set up. We're high rollers now, bro.
Oh, well, with Pearson in charge, how can we go wrong?
There you go.
He's the man.
Pearson's doing a great job.
All right, quickly, couple other items. Top of the wide receiver class, Shane says it's a good group. Each has their own strengths and weaknesses. Would not go any further with that. I think it's important to note, and this was one other item, and I've tried to tell people this over and over again, but of course it devalues when the writers are so thirsty to find out who's coming in for visits. To paraphrase Shane, and I've told you this for months, folks, I've been telling you for years, prospect visits are done to find out various things, including if they will not fit with your team. Okay? Shane was very specific. He said it kind of under the radar, didn't emphasize it, didn't go back and repeat it. But folks, just because you see the guy came in for a visit doesn't necessarily mean the Giants are going to draft him. It may mean by the time he left for his visit, they've crossed him off the list.
Yep.
But nobody wants to hear that. Okay? Everybody on the web and everybody who writes says, oh, the guy came in for a visit. The Giants are going to be looking at him. We got to put him on the radar. No! The guy could have just eliminated himself by the time he walked out of the building.
Absolutely. Hopefully not for the guy's sake. But it's like speed dating. You go,
Exactly.
I've never been on speed dating, but I would think if you go on 10 dates, you know what I mean? Half of those, you're just like, okay, I'm not doing that.
That's it.
Not doing that.
That's it.
I see potential here. I see potential here. Whoa, what about this one? This one's amazing.
But there are some, it's like lose the number.
Right. Right away.
That's it.
That's
away.
it. Yep.
That's it. Well, we're giving him Lance's home number. All right. What else do we have here? I think that's probably about all the key stuff. I think that's it in terms of today's Joe Schoen's presser. He did say it is harder, which we already know, to come up with names. He was asked, who are you going to draft? We'll all go home. The writers were like being funny, right? And he said, look, it's harder to come up with names at 25
was
than
about
at
to say
5 or
that.
7
Yep.
because you're so far down. You
Literally
don't know
have
who's going to
no
get picked.
idea. Right.
He did say that based on their board, and most guys will say this every year anyway, but we have no choice but to believe him. He thinks there will be a player that they'll be very happy with at 25.
Oh, yeah.
I certainly hope so.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Look,
I mean,
he-
come on.
Joe Schoen looks like a guy that does more than his due diligence when it comes,
yes.
to doing his vetting and his background, his research and all of that stuff on these potential prospects that are coming out in the 2023 draft. So I keep saying, I definitely have the utmost confidence in Joe Schoen in everything that he does. But who knows? And at 25, you literally don't know. I think the first 2 or 3 picks are probably the only picks that are kind of like known to happen. Like those are ones that, okay, those are going to happen. And then after that, you never know what those top teams in the draft are going to do. You never know. Because maybe somebody, and these quarterbacks, right? Who is the number 2 quarterback? I think that was kind of the question, and that's or 2 or 3 quarterbacks. You got Bryce Young, and you got a couple of other kids. Who is that guy? And then what team is going to take those guys early in the draft?
How many quarterbacks are going to go in the first round?
Right.
That's a big question.
It's a huge
Some people
question.
think it could be as many as 5.
Right. Remember years ago, Aaron Rodgers was supposed to go really early in the draft, and he ended up falling all the way.
People knew that he had a very big locker room issue, and that's what dropped him. And,
You don't say.
And that turned
15 years later.
Well, no, this is something that was known around the league. It's why he dropped.
Right.
Nobody questioned his ability.
Right.
But there was a lot of stuff, rumblings coming out of that locker room that he was not a well-liked teammate. He was more introverted, more selfish. And this is stuff that has all come out since his time in Green Bay over the years.
Definitely has.
Now, it didn't stop him from winning a lot of games.
And 4 MVPs.
And the Super Bowl.
The Super Bowl.
But there were things that there were flags there that people did not like intangible-wise.
Right.
And they turned out to be true. They just did not impede his success.
You know what I've seen, though? There's not too many guys like that anymore in the draft. Everybody's more of a likable guy.
Well, I think because they know that so much emphasis is put on the intangibles that if they don't market themselves as a likable guy, they're doing themselves a big disservice.
Yep, for sure. I get that. But, now that you say that, I'm like, wow, I do remember that. But now I'm thinking, when was the last time we heard of all the, Jamarcus Russell, all the other, off-the-field negative stuff that came with the quarterback, and they ended up getting drafted high, maybe didn't have or did have a good career.
Yeah, I can't recall another QB. Well, Josh Rosen was one.
He had
that
some stuff.
There was some baggage about him. A California dude, didn't want to take the game seriously, that kind of stuff. That didn't want to work hard. That stuff was floating around him. Kyler Murray was another guy that there were questions about his intensity and his focus and his desire to play baseball.
It's funny how the things that they talk about pre-draft kind of show up down the road 2, 3, 4, 5.
Well,
in the Aaron Rodgers case, 12, 13, 14, 15 years later.
This is why, when the front office folks talk about due diligence, you have to research the entire scope of the prospect. You can't just look at the film. The portfolio is thick, and it's got a lot of layers to it. And when that guy gets considered and they open up that folder, they're talking about everything, not just the plays that you and I saw on Saturday. There's more to it, Jonathan.
Yep.
I think Baker had a little bit of that too.
Okay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, Pearson mentioning Baker Mayfield. Yes, he did.
For sure.
Yes, he did.
You know that? I don't know if you've
There was
seen
some
that
intangible
movie
questions
Draft.
there, too.
That movie Draft
Draft Day.
Yeah,
That, Kevin Costner. It was fun.
It was a pretty good movie.
It was fun. Now, a lot of comic book in there.
Oh yeah, for
but it was
sure.
fun.
Yeah. But I do like the idea that they made sure they showed that when these NFL
The
scouts,
$100 bill hidden in the back of the book.
the NFL scouts, they go in, and when they go in, they don't just talk to your coaches. They don't just talk to your teammates. They talk to the staff of the cafeteria. They talk to people in your classrooms, teachers. They talk to associates. They talk to everybody,
There
especially
are
if you're a potential
investigators, too.
first-round draft pick.
Oh, yeah.
And they're investing tens of millions of dollars into
All
you.
right.
They got to do their research.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you. That's why when we talk about prospects, and look, I've been doing it a long time, so yes, I do watch film and I do have opinions about guys. Tape That's the opinions I have.
Right.
I don't know enough about their medical, and I don't know enough about their intangibles to concretely say that I've got a grade on a guy. I never grade a player. Okay, there are some folks who go beyond their bounds and they will grade a player. I don't grade a player. What I do, Jonathan, and you've seen my stuff, I will look at a player's tape, a compilation of players' tape that I get from a scout friend of mine, and I'll say, okay, let me come up with 4 positive words that describe what I see and 4 negative words that describe what I see, characteristics that I see in his tape. And I write them down, and that's how I conduct my review of a player. I will never, quote, grade a player because there's too much that I can't get a hold of.
Yep.
The smartest people know what they don't know. Think about
exactly. That. Unknown unknowns. They know those.
For sure.
But I like the what you said about basically you won't grade a player because you don't know that other side of them.
It's impossible.
That is huge because guys on tape could look like Tarzan.
And play like Jane.
But I'm talking about the guys that look like Tarzan and play like Tarzan.
Oh, that's
right?
true too.
You know, that weight room guys, all of a sudden they're locker room leaders, but off the field they might have a domestic violence way in the past.
Never know.
You know, shoplifting, like something that just have like questionable character, right? And then usually that kind of shows its ugly head.
At some point it will.
Some guys, I had some character concerns coming out. That's what dropped me from being a drafted guy to an undrafted guy. I had quote unquote character concerns, but I was a kid who just was a kid. I was a kid and made dumb mistakes, and it wasn't a habitual thing.
We were all 21, John.
Right. We were all 19 for me.
Okay.
But those are things you look at, and it's not the one-off. It's the habitual offenders.
Right.
It's the guy that did this and did this and then did this. Not the guy that got locked up the one time for possibly DUI. That's what happened.
I got you.
It was a one-off type of situation, and for me, it cost me a lot of money, but I knew that I was a pro, and it took me a while to kind of, understand that after I went undrafted because I was like, wow, like, do I not deserve to play in the NFL? That was a huge kind of knock on me.
Did that make you work harder?
Absolutely. I had a huge chip on my shoulder.
It worked out.
Like, I remember draft day. Like, draft day was hard. It was so hard. I had a party at my house, and it was back in the day when it was 2 days of draft.
Yes.
First, second round, and then 3 through 7 on the second day.
I know it well.
So, DeAndre
I started,
Levy.
there were 12 rounds.
Oh, really?
Yes, there were.
Paul always putting his age on everybody. Dinosaur over here. I don't even know. Like, I don't even remember that. I thought it was only
rounds.
7 rounds
12
forever.
12 rounds.
Right? So DeAndre Levy, he ended up playing a long time in the NFL. He was on my teammate in college. He was rated behind me, and I was rated, second to fourth. So I was supposed to go early. It's the 3rd round. DeAndre Levy gets drafted by the Detroit Lions. So I'm like, oh, my boy got drafted. So I'm so excited because I'm about to go.
You gotta be going.
I'm about to go. I didn't get a phone call until the 5th round. So that was hours later, and I'm just like, what is going on? I'm so confused at what's going on. And then, it's a lot of other stuff that we're not going to talk about at BBKL.
Okay.
That's a whole nother 2-hour podcast that maybe me and you will talk about one day, Paul.
Okay.
But all that I'm saying is that some of this stuff that happens in college, these coaches, these scouts, they find out what's going on. And for me, I pay for that up front. I think they were wrong because I ended up playing 9 years and I didn't have any incidents when I was in the NFL.
Right.
Because they were just kind of one-offs. But I think what they think was like, look, this guy could possibly be a problem. He could possibly end up on ESPN for the wrong reasons.
All right, Pearson, we're going to try to get to these calls now. Rapid fire. I know we took a lot of time. We took half the show up, but I thought it was important to get Jonathan's player perspective on all of these points as Joe Schoen went through the state of the Giants. Pearson, do we have to read the Huddle podcast promo, or is that not one of them we have to do? All right, don't forget you can subscribe to the Giants Huddle podcast. It features interviews with Giants players and coaches, insights from some of the best reporters covering the NFL. You can find it on your favorite podcast platform, or listen to the Giants app or at giants.com/podcasts. And don't forget you can leave a positive review for the Giants Huddle and Big Blue Kickoff Live, either on Apple Podcasts or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Of course, that always helps us. The more hits, the more popular is the show, the more happy people are upstairs, and it means we get to keep doing what we do. And also, Giants fans, take your fandom to the next level with a season ticket membership. Stay connected to the club all year round, not just on game days. Memberships are now available for the 2023 season. To learn more all about exclusive member benefits, visit Giants.com/tickets. Limited inventory is available. And finally, we remind you that the Giants official connected TV streaming app, Giants TV, brings original video content and game highlights on demand and direct to Big Blue fans. Giants TV is free on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire TV, and the Giants mobile app. We now finally get to our phone calls. Pearson, let's hit the button, and we go to Wilson from Roxbury. You're next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello.
Hey, what's up, guys? Hey, Jonathan, dímelo.
What's up, Papa? How you doing?
Hey, listen, real quick. I love Lance and I love John, but you guys are like peanut butter and jelly, man. You just go together. Oh my goodness. Hey,
Appreciate it.
Hey, I love when I see my man Jonathan. I got a call. But hey, real quick, I know you guys have a.
I want to do quick calls today because we took a lot of time.
So I'm only gonna into my Saquon point. I'm not gonna do the other one. I want to get Jonathan's perspective as a former player. Jonathan, listen. I told Paul and I told Lance the other day that Saquon to me completely misread the market, and if he would have gone back, he would have taken that that contract extension that they offered him during the season last year. But that's over and done with, right? So as a player, right, Jonathan? Let me ask something. Joe Schoen goes to Saquon and says, "Hey, listen, Saquon, man, I'm sorry, you didn't take that that contract. There's nothing I can do. I can offer you half or a little bit more than half." How would a player, right, take that, and how will that affect him going forward? Like, because he's not happy about playing in the tag, but how will that affect him going forward? And he's playing because he's a human being, man. That you lose a lot of money. How is that going to affect you going forward? That's my only concern. I'm not questioning his character or nothing, but as a human being, that's just human nature. You say, "Oh my God, what I messed up? What the hell did I do?" How will that go?
Wilson, we'll let Jonathan answer. Thanks for the call. We
Great
want to try to go
question, Wilson.
rapid fire.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I love that question. Best question that Wilson has asked. But the thing is, Saquon is now a businessman. He's now a businessman. The Giants are a business, of course. Saquon is now a businessman. Saquon has always been a football player. Always been a football player. A competitor, right? So now he's learning this business side of it. And as he steps away from ball, whenever he decides to retire, he'll be fully in the business, right? And truly understanding that. So he's young. He's a young businessman, but he's a veteran in terms of football. So with all that being said, I think business is being done. And as he's understanding how business is, missed opportunities come and might cost you a couple dollars, maybe $1 million or $2 million. But at the end of the day, when he puts on that helmet, he's not a businessman anymore. He's a football player. And I think that's going to show. I don't think you're going to see the business side of him in the frustrations on the football field. I think you're going to see the football player that we all know that he is.
From a practical perspective, forgetting about his character for a minute, if he winds up playing on the one-year tag, well, then he's got to bowl out like he did last season because he's playing for his next contract, whether it be the second tag or a new contract from another team, all right? If it even gets to that point. If it doesn't get to that point, and I think all parties would rather he sign a new contract before he's got to play on the tag, but worst case scenario is he's playing in another contract year. He'd be a fool not to give 150%.
Oh, yeah. And that's what you're going to get from him. I don't see him not getting that. And because, his career is basically in front of him if he doesn't perform well. Like, at the end of the day, the business for him is almost over. He's almost done with business as of right now. In terms of if he can't do anything and get another deal with the Giants, business is done. He's going to sign that franchise tag, and he's going to be the player that we always know he is.
That's it.
And he might have that chip on his shoulder like when I came out of college and I was undrafted. And we want to see Saquon with a chip on his shoulder. Not from people thinking that he's not going to be the same guy. I think he did that last year. Now it's going to be like, oh, you don't think I'm the best running back in the NFL? Now that's a whole different chip on your shoulder.
Now, the only incentive for the Giants is that if they could get the new deal, they could use the tag on Lawrence next year. That's the one part of this equation that makes it a little sticky. Otherwise, you could just say, all right, Saquon, do what you do. We got you the tag this year. We could tag you next year, too.
Yep.
But then you can't use it on Lawrence.
My question is, what do you think about, let's say they don't do a deal with Saquon and Saquon ends up playing on a tag and they don't get Dexter Lawrence done? What do you think happens?
Well, now they've only got the ability to tag one of them.
Right.
And that may come down to...
But Saquon's on a tag already, though. So he's already on a tag.
Well, he's on the tag for 23.
Oh, right.
They don't have to tag him for 24.
Year. Right, the following year. Right.
For 24 now, there is the potential that, okay, now what are you going to do?
I'm talking about this year with Dexter Lawrence. Like, what do you think happens if they don't sign him to a long-term deal after he basically missed, April? He's probably going to miss May.
He plays.
He plays?
He plays on his fifth year option. He plays on that and balls out to try to get himself a mega deal at the end of the season.
What if he pulls one of those Le'Veon Bells where he just...
I don't see that in his makeup.
Yeah, me neither. What if it does happen? That's scary.
There's always the potential that something like that can happen. I don't ever want to say it can't, but I think part of what Joe Schoen and Dable always talk about is the type of character guys that are in this building. I think you kind of have an idea when you've worked with a guy, especially he's been here now under this administration for a season. They know what his makeup is. Just like we know what Barkley's makeup is.
Yep.
Neither one of these guys is going to jake it during the offseason so that they come ill-prepared when they walk into the building. That's not going to happen. We know what these guys are.
I remember months ago, not too long ago, but months ago, right after the season, when Joe Schoen, we were talking about Daniel Jones, we were talking about Saquon Barkley, we were talking about Julian Love, the guys that were contractually up this year. He mentioned Dexter Lawrence.
Yes.
I remember that. Do you think it's his fault that Dexter Lawrence is not here?
No. And again, Shane said that they talked to Lawrence's camp with
Lawrence
him
was sitting there
week.
eating his cereal, and he was like, really?
No.
Hey, called his agent up right away.
I
Like,
think
hey,
what
did
happened
you hear what
is
Joe Schoen said?
Payne got tagged in Washington, then got a new deal, and then Jeffrey Simmons got a new deal in Tennessee.
Yeah, he did.
I think that's what made Dexter's people say, let's dial the phone.
Right.
Let's see what we can do with this.
Because the comps are out there.
There you go.
The comps are out there.
Yeah. 201-939-4513. Let's try to go rapid phone calls here. We go to John in Maine. You're next on the show. Hello.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
Hi.
I want to ask about basically flanker. Now, I know we got a lot of guys who are qualified as slot receivers, but when it comes to the flanker, is he considered more like a split end because he's far from the line, or more like a slot because he's behind the line?
Well, see,
and why can't we put our slots as flankers as well?
You're now using the old school terminology. We used to call them flankers and split ends.
Right,
now they call them X, Y's, and Z's.
Yep.
Okay, so the X, who is the split end in the old terminology, is usually for the right-handed quarterback. He's lining up far to the left side, and he's the guy who's going to stretch the field. All right? Mm-hmm. Your other guy, your flanker on the right side for your right-handed quarterback, is the guy who's going to be the Z or the medium range receiver.
The possession receiver usually to the strong side with
Bingo.
the Y, which is the tight end.
Correct.
And then they use different letters, S and W, for that slot receiver guy, and that's Wandell, that's Sterling, that's those type of guys.
Mm-hmm. And don't forget the H-back.
The H-back too. So the H-back is the tight end / running back / wide receiver. Right. You could use different guys.
So now that we got that straight, what was the question exactly?
Right.
Well, why can't our slots play flanker?
Why can't the slots play on the outside?
Well, that's easy. Because what happens is, in today's NFL, your corners have been getting bigger and more physical. And when they press you and jam you on the outside, if you're a little 5'9" guy who's wiry, you have trouble getting off that jam. If you're playing in the slot, usually you're facing more quicks guys who play in nickel.
And you're off the ball.
Because you're not going to press that guy.
People can't get their hands on you right away.
And you can juke off the line.
And you got a lot more ways to go. You got basically a four-way go. You got up, out, in, backwards. You can do all type of directions.
Right.
But the flanker is also behind the line.
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. It depends on what's around. You know, the tight end's off. He has to be on. Like, you know, that all the time.
Yeah.
But the slot guy is usually off unless he's on, and that guy that's outside is probably going to motion in and become inside or outside.
Here's what could help you a bit. Your flanker, he's going to be wide to the right boundary. Let's stick with the right-handed quarterback. He'll be wide to the right boundary. He does not have what Jonathan said in terms of a four-way escape route.
No.
He doesn't, because there's a boundary there.
Yep.
Okay? So he's limited in where he can go and how many moves he can make. And if he's lined up against a physical, tough cornerback, he's going to get beaten up, and it's going to be a lot harder for him to break free with the release.
That's why those guys are a little bit bigger. They're
Exactly.
a little bit bigger. They're a little bit more physical. They're a little bit more stronger, and they're kind of more experienced. But you got guys like Justin Jefferson who can play any position on the field.
Those
Devontae
guys
Adams,
are special.
Very special. Devontae Adams can play any position at that receiver. He can play inside SW. He can play outside X. He can play strong side to the Z. Flanker, or what is flanker, and what's the other
Split
one?
end.
Flanker and
Split end is
There
the
you go.
X.
There you
That's
go.
that's the old version of the X.
Split end. There you go.
Did we help you out there?
Well, I still don't understand. The flanker is supposed to be off the line because the tight end is over there.
Well, the tight end
So,
can be off too.
He can be.
He don't have to be on the line,
Right.
because if the tight end's off, then he has to be on the line.
Correct.
If the tight end's on, he has to be off.
One of them has to be
Right.
even with the line,
Yeah.
and then the other guy's a step back.
Yeah, but the side where the tight end is, you have the flanker, and he's not pressed so closely.
But here's the problem. Regardless of whether or not he's a step or two off, it's still the same problem. He's up against the boundary. He's dealing with a bigger, more physical defensive back than the slot guy is.
Yes.
So your formation question doesn't really apply here. It's about the matchup.
Yep.
The matchup makes it a different matchup.
And then offenses too, to scheme, they would put that flanker guy. I guess because it's split in. He's not even talking about spots. He's just talking about strong side versus weak side, basically.
Well,
right?
the flanker a lot of times will go in motion.
Right.
Okay, and that's how sometimes you'll try to get him away from the press coverage because he's going to have problems breaking it. So a lot of times you'll put him in motion just to get him free.
Right.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
But you don't always want to have to do that. You know, you want the most flexibility you can. That's why guys are special when you say he can play slot or he can play outside. That's a luxury. And if the guy can play the X, Y, or the Z, now you got a real luxury because he can play
Like a
all
Waller.
the positions.
Like a Waller.
You
Waller
know?
can play outside, inside, off,
I hope we helped you, John.
tight end, H.
You did.
Have a good day. Appreciate it. 201-939-4513. Try to get rapid fire, but I know it's sometimes hard because we got questions like that which we have to answer.
Yep.
Desmond from New Jersey. You're next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello. Desmond, hello. 201-939-4513. I believe Desmond is gone. Pearson, is he gone? We'll try to get him back on. Desmond, we're going to give you another chance. 5-yard penalty for a false start. But it's now first and 15. Go ahead, Desmond.
Hey, how are you guys?
Hi.
How you guys doing?
Great. How are you?
All right, so my question to you guys is, what are the chances of the Giants trading out of the 25 pick, since given the fact that the last 5 years, each NFL team holding that pick has traded out?
Well, let's put it this way. Joe Schoen has said he's not adverse to moving up or moving down. We know that there's a lot of fertile ground between the low first round all the way into the third and fourth round with make-it players. Not necessarily Pro Bowl caliber grades, but make-it players. So could he do something? Sure he could. He's even said that. So it's not out of the question. There was a media outlet that hypothetically was trying to create a deal for DeAndre Hopkins the other day. Did you see this?
Mm-mm.
It was a guy proposing to the Cardinals. It was a media guy. This was not anything with any beef to it.
Okay.
It was a media guy suggesting that the Cardinals get the Giants 1, and I believe their 3, and give up their 2 and DeAndre Hopkins.
I mean, I was all in when you proposed that to me months ago.
Well, not that trade, but the idea of Hopkins was very
Being here.
enticing to me.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing is that the Giants, they're not like when you have a pick that late in the first round.
Thanks for the call, by the way.
when you have a pick that late in the first round, you don't really know who's going to fall to you. You know, if you're
Right.
picking in the top 10, you have a good idea of 1 or 2, possibly 3 players that you can pick. I'm pretty sure the Giants have 10 to 15 players that they could possibly draft at 25. And I think that is the number, about 10 to 15 guys.
It could be.
Because you never know what's going to happen in the first 24 picks of the draft. You never know. There might be some guys that supposed to be in the second round that get drafted early. Some guys that possibly have fell back, didn't get drafted in the top 10 or top 15, that all of a sudden are here at 25 when you thought they was going to be off the board. And then you make that pick that you didn't even think you need that position. But since this guy was so high on your board that you ended up drafting him at a position that you probably don't really need that much, but he's just a tremendous talent, so you got to get him. Like, we never know. You know, I'm excited to see what the Giants actually do when the draft comes.
How are we doing on time, Pearson? We got 10 more minutes.
10 minutes.
Excellent. 201-939-4513. All of our phone lines are open, so if you haven't gotten through to this program before, now is your chance.
Call us up, baby.
Hit the speed dial. We've got 10 minutes left on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Jonathan, I think it's important when you're at 25, if you decide you will make the pick and not move, it is important. It's a first-round pick. You've got to pick a guy who not only do you believe can compete as a starter, but a guy who may not even necessarily be a need guy now. Because as Joe Schoen did mention during part of his presser, you have to be aware of the player contracts you have. For example, Leonard Williams is entering the last year of his deal. Okay? You don't know if things are going to work out and you'll have him beyond this. So you may need a stud defensive lineman to replace Leonard Williams. You may need a stud lineman to replace Dexter Lawrence if things don't work out. So you do have to keep in mind, he didn't say what percentage of future years he thinks about when making that pick, but you do have to consider the current contract status of your key players because you may not be able to hold on to all of them.
Yep, and I think that goes to what I was just talking about earlier, and like it may not be the need. It's more like now in 2023, it may just be like, let's get this guy, this player, to give us depth. And I think that was something that I've been talking about all offseason. The Giants just need a better quality crop of players. You know, they had decent players here last year, pretty good players, but not too many great players. I think Dexter Lawrence played great. I think Saquon played great. I think Daniel Jones looked great at times. You know, but now you bring in guys who are great players that have projected long careers if they stay healthy. And that's who the Giants, I think, are eyeballing in the draft.
This may be a good time to remind you that Xavier McKinney is entering the last year of his contract
Yep.
as well.
Yep. So we'll see about
He's a
him.
core guy.
Yep. For sure. They got to do something with him.
You're
But
going to have
said
to
it.
pay him.
Shane talked about him and Dexter Lawrence a
He
few
has.
months ago.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Hey, great. Back to the phones. RJ from Georgia. You had the quick dial. You're in on the program today. Hello.
Hey, what's going on, Paul? What's
Good to
going on,
talk to you.
JC?
What's up, baby?
201-939-4513. Go ahead, RJ.
Yes, how you doing? All right.
Great. How are you?
Good. Listen, you guys gonna have to help me out, man. I'm suffering. I'm from Saquon, man. I don't want to lose that dude. That's my guy right there. I want him to stay. I don't want to see him in another uniform. Can you guys please take my blood pressure down, please?
Well,
Did you listen to earlier in the program? Honestly, there's nothing to be concerned about.
because as of right now, he's kind of handcuffed with the franchise
Yes, he
tag.
is.
He's handcuffed. So the only reason he's not in the building is because he wants to get a long-term deal. And
Right.
because he doesn't have a long-term deal, he doesn't sign a franchise tag. So as of right now, he's just kind of in a state of limbo.
It is the only.
But he can't go nowhere,
It
bro.
is the only
he
action.
can't go nowhere.
The only action
Yeah.
he can take is not
Is
be
not
here
be
for
here.
voluntary.
That's it.
It's the only thing he can do.
Right. Because if he doesn't show up in training camp, he's getting fined. Right? Am I correct?
Well, once he signs.
Once he signs.
Once he signs.
What if he doesn't
now-
sign the franchise tag at all? Let's say
Well, then
August hits,
he holds out for
and
the
let's
year.
say September hits.
Say he holds out for the season.
Can he sign it? He can't sign it during the season?
The franchise?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He can sign it anytime.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
And
what
one
would be the point?
and one more other thing is sexy Dex.
July
we can't lose
17th.
that.
July 17th is the deadline for the tag.
Okay. So
I
he
apologize.
We
has-
can't lose him either. Dexter Lawrence.
Well, the 17th is the deadline to negotiate a long-term deal with him. if you want to sign the deal.
Because he can sign a franchise tag at any time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think I got it right.
Yeah, because
the CBA is so complicated.
Didn't JPP was on a franchise tag when he had that accident?
And he signed it right away.
But he did sign it right away.
It didn't take too long. He said to me, Paul, I'm guaranteed $16 million for the season. Why wouldn't I sign it? He was happy to sign it. Most guys aren't.
He's asking about Dexter now.
I got to go back through the rules. Anyway, go ahead. I'm sorry. Yes, sir. What about Dexter?
No, and I'm worried about Dexter too, man. We lost Linville Joseph. We lost Dalvin Tomlinson. We cannot lose sexy Dexter. We can't do it. Can you take my blood pressure down again?
Okay. Listen, plausible scenario. We talked about it before. Barkley winds up signing a multi-year deal, which I think he's eventually going to come to his wits with.
Because it makes sense for everybody.
It really does. Yep. He wants to be here. They want him here. That will probably work out. Then you remove the tag, and you can put the tag on Dexter, and now he gets handcuffed, and now he can't go anywhere. And so you don't really have to worry. There are mechanisms here where the Giants can take care of that. Now, the only problem is they won't have an additional tag to put on McKinney if they don't get a long-term deal with him. So that's the problem. But don't worry about Barkley. Please, it's okay. Be well.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'll let you guys go.
All right, boss. We go back to the phones. Alex in Syracuse, you're next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hello.
Paul, JC, how you doing today, guys?
Hiya.
All is well, brother.
Good. Hey, real quick first, just in response to that last guy, just real quick, we're celebrating a holiday today that I think that guy should look up. I think it'll help some of his anxiety. That's not why I called in.
Exactly what holiday you're talking about. I'm all for
it. Yeah. I'm just saying Google it. You'll figure it out. But I'm calling in because I actually have, I think, sort of maybe a bold prediction about who I think the best receiver in this draft class is that people are kind of talking about but not really talking about. I think, and I would love personally if the Giants could get this guy, I think Cedric Tillman is kind of a sleeper in this draft.
No. He's no sleeper. He's my pick for the Giants at 57.
That's honestly, Paul, if that could happen in the second round, I think 3 to 5 years. I think maybe first year he's not going to be the most impactful guy out of this draft class. But I think you look 3 to 5 years down the line, if he can stay healthy and the injury doesn't flare up on him, I'm telling you, I think that guy is actually the best receiver in this draft class. And I think in a few years from now, we'll be looking back and saying that. And if the Giants could get him, man, I would be stoked.
Yeah, well, that's the guy that I wanted 57. I've targeted him for quite a while now. I'm targeting Deonte Banks at 25 and Cedric Tillman at 57. Will either guy be there? It's probably going to be close for both of them. But those would be the two guys that I would love to see the Giants pick up with the first two picks.
I couldn't agree more.
Thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. 201-939-4513. Pierce, we got a couple more minutes here? All right, 2 more minutes. If somebody else wants to get in for a quick comment, we'll be glad to take it. The one thing that's interesting about the receivers, Jonathan, and this goes into the fit that Joe Schoen was talking about. It's clear to me that the Giants right now offensively seem to be more, I don't want to say acclimated to, but maybe that's the right word, to the quicker receivers who are going to get off the line quick, catch the short pass, and get yak yardage, as opposed to the deep threat who's going to go downfield and get the big catch downfield and maybe get less yak because that's more airtime with the football. I've always preferred to have one of those big guys in the receivers room.
Like a Plax.
Well, there you go.
Yep.
That's what Kenny Golladay was supposed to be.
Right.
If the Giants decide that that's not the kind of guy who fits what they want to do, then they very well might draft another scheme-specific guy, a smaller guy like a Zay Flowers, like some of these other sub-6-foot guys. Now, that's not my preference, but if that's what the coaching staff has told the front office, that's what they're going to look at.
Yeah, and then you saw last year, as the season progressed, you saw Isaiah Hodgins' maturity, him get better as the season went on.
And he's a bigger type of receiver, but not necessarily the home run guy.
But then also, you saw the kid that got shipped over to Kansas City, Richie James. He had a tremendous year.
As a slot.
As a slot guy, as a smaller guy who can play in that slot position we were talking about earlier, who can get open. And we talked about this too. I said, Richie James can get open. If you can get open in the NFL, you will get the ball. You will get the ball. And if you got yak on top of that, that means you're not only going to get the ball, you're going to stay in the game. Because at the end of the day, the thing is about these corners are getting better, they're getting more athletic, they're getting more physical, they're getting smarter. They're not gonna let you just run routes on them. But if you're off the ball at that slot position, you have the advantage because you had that four-way go like we talked about earlier. So it's advantageous for those guys, smaller body guys that can get open and they can catch. And if any of these guys out of college, these smaller receivers, all of them look like they can produce yak after the catch.
All right, real quick, one-word answer because I want to get to this last caller. How important is it that if the Giants now have Darren Waller at tight end, who is athletic, can get downfield and gets yak yardage, does that lessen the need for a receiver of that type because they now have Darren Waller at tight end?
One-word answer, yes.
Okay. Don in Texas, you are last on BBKL. Thanks for calling.
Hey, P-Dot. Hey, Jonathan.
What's going on?
Jonathan, a big fan of yours. Thanks for all your service, and I love the sweater. I'm heading there in June.
No doubt, man.
I have two questions I'm going to just ask, and it's mostly from defensive perspectives.
Yes.
If the Giants, what do you think they're going to do? If they have on the first round, their first pick in the first round, if they have a player equally valued at cornerback and a player equally valued on defensive line, which position do you think they will go for? And my second question is really for Jonathan as well, is watching Daniel Jones over the years, as a defensive player, what is your point of view on what he still needs to improve on the most? Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Great
All right, we'll let you go, my man.
So the first question, he was asking if you have that equally valued corner or DB, right? Corner versus D lineman. I think you go corner because of how the league is kind of, moving. We talked about receivers.
I concur.
Yeah, we talk about receivers, and now that the league is more of an aerial attack, you need as much corners as possible. And I feel like more corners get hurt than the defensive linemen. I don't know. I might just be saying that.
Seems like
it seems like it, right?
Especially those soft
tissue injuries. And then the other
injuries.
question was Daniel Jones' improvement. What do I need? What do I see?
As a defensive player.
As a defensive player? Good question. That's a great question. I seen his progress throughout this year in 2022, and I was really happy from the beginning of the season to the end of the season. And even from 2021 and 2020, his progress in the 2022 year, I think he was a totally different player. But what I also think he needs to improve on, I think, number one, this is my number one thing for him since he first came in the league, and I think he's gotten better, but he still needs to do it a little bit better. When he tucks that ball down and he runs with the ball, because he has to learn how to slide and get out of bounds. And if you watch him, these defenders, they're hitting him close to the sideline because they understand that he doesn't really know how to get out of bounds. Watch Patrick Mahomes run. They don't even touch him when he runs out of bounds because they understand that he gets out of bounds, and if you touch him, you're going to get a flag.
Right.
So if Daniel Jones can learn that, I think that'll take his entire game to another level. I think that's so underrated that people aren't really talking about it much because, like, as a defender, I know if that quarterback doesn't really understand how to get out of bounds, I'm going to hit him before he goes out of bounds.
Of course you are.
And it's not you can't keep taking hits like that. You just can't keep taking. He already got knocked out one game before. He got knocked out the game. He can't keep taking hits like that. Like, he just can't do it. Somebody's going to catch him, and hopefully he doesn't get hurt, but somebody's going to catch him, and he might get knocked out the game.
All right, to clarify the franchise tag. Player has, he could sign the franchise tag if he prefers, but he's got until July 17th to work out a long-term deal with the club, okay? If he cannot get a long-term deal at that point, now his only choice is either sit out or sign the franchise tag and play on the one-year tag. It's that simple.
Yeah.
Okay? That's the actual status of how this works.
Saquon can't sit out. He can't afford to sit out.
He's not going to miss
Like,
the
he
season.
literally can't afford to sit
it.
out. You can't pass up on $10 million. No way.
Well, that's right, because, again, you sit out, you don't get paid.
Yeah.
You get
can't-
nothing.
There's no way. And,
You get nothing.
And he's not a better player by sitting out a year.
No.
It's not happening.
No.
It's not happening. So for everybody or anybody that's nervous about Saquon not playing for the Giants,
Don't be.
He's not. He just may not be happy. But the thing is, we talked about it earlier, you might want to have him angry.
Oh, he'll be motivated.
You might want to have an angry Saquon playing for the New York Giants.
All right, folks, that'll do it for today's edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live. Thanks for joining Thursday's episode. We will also be able to have this up on the archive very shortly. So if you want to catch Joe Schoen's presser, That's on the archive. We invite you to listen to that. You can figure out everything that he said on your own. You don't have to read the papers or listen to us if you don't want to. And then, of course, you can catch the archive of Big Blue Kickoff Live on the Giants podcast platforms everywhere and at giants.com/podcasts. For Jonathan Casillas, I'm Paul Dottino. It's been great talking to you today. We'll catch you again next time.